All right, it is 9 a.m. here in Seattle, Washington, so it's time to get started with the remotely controlling the AirCheck G2 presentation. My name's Mike Panacki. I'm going to be your presenter today. I'm owner of Network Protocol Specialist LLC here in Seattle, and I've been working with these products, well, a variety of these products for the last 20 years. So I do webcasts on these, we do training on these, so I do a lot of these webcasts. You may have been in one of the webcasts I've done in the past on the NetAlly tools. So today we are going to be talking about the AirCheck G2. So we've got our AirCheck G2 set up there. Got something a little different connected to it for this one. We're going to take a look at that as we go through our presentation today. So our presentation today is on remotely controlling the AirCheck G2. Now, you may or may not have used the AirCheck G2 in the past as far as walking around with it, doing troubleshooting. If you haven't, this presentation is going to be a good opportunity for you to see what the AirCheck G2 can do. I am a question-driven person, so as we're going through the presentation today, please do not hesitate to send in your questions. I'll do my best to get those answered as we're going along. If it ties in with what I'm going to be talking about next, great. If it doesn't, we're going to probably wait till the end, but I will get your questions answered. There's not going to be any PowerPoint slides or anything in this one. In this presentation, this is me talking about this, and we're going to be taking a look at the screen of that analyzer and seeing what it can do to help you troubleshoot your wireless network. So with that said, what we're going to do is I'm going to switch over to the overhead camera. We're going to take a look at the AirCheck G2, what connections we have on it. We're going to get it fired up, and we're going to connect to it wirelessly. And this is something that I was kind of curious about, so I set it up, and I thought I'd introduce it in this webcast. All right, so let's go over here to the AirCheck G2. So here we have, and I'll pull the power on it, here we have our AirCheck G2. And a couple things, if you have a 3D printer, you can go out to Thingiverse and download this stand. And so the stand fits nice and neatly in the back of the AirCheck G2 and those screw holes back there. You can print that out. So if you search for NetAlly out on Thingiverse, you can find those stands out there. Now what we have on our AirCheck G2 is over here on the side, I've got an external antenna connection. Now we're going to use this when we're going out and doing things like locating rogue devices. So let me come over here to my wireless drawer. I grab an antenna. So here I have this directional antenna right there. Now, we're talking today about using this remotely. Now, if I'm using it remotely, I'm going to need somebody else out there helping me out if I send it out to a remote site. But if I'm using it myself, what I can do is connect this antenna to the AirCheck G2, and as I'm going out locating rogue devices, I can use this, and this is going to be the strongest signal coming in, and I'm going to walk along, and if the signal starts getting weaker, I'll stop, I'll turn to the right. Does the signal get stronger or weaker? Turn to the left, does it get stronger or weaker? Now, if it gets weaker, no matter what direction I go, I'm going to take and I'm going to turn it 90 degrees, up, down, see if that device is above or below me. Okay? So that is what that external antenna connection is for right there on the side of our AirCheck G2. We also have two Type A USB ports. Now the USB port on the bottom is number 1, and that provides 500 milliamps of power. The one on the top provides a couple hundred milliamps of power, and we can plug a USB drive into either one of these. This is a very useful way for transferring test results from the AirCheck G2 over to the AirCheck G2 Manager software that you can put on your Windows computer. We also have a micro SD connection or USB connection, and that's what I'm going to use if I'm going in and connecting this directly up to my computer. I've got my power connection right there, and I've got an Ethernet connection over here on the side. Now this Ethernet connection can be used to test Ethernet ports. I can test PoE, I can get an IP address, I can make sure I can get out to the network. Now what we've got today is a little different setup, and that is this is a wireless device. And so with a wireless device, I was thinking, you know what? If I send it out to a remote site and I want them to help me do some troubleshooting, do I want them tethered to the network with a network cable if I'm going to remote into it? No. So what I want is I want to be able to manage that AirCheck G2 wirelessly. So I went out and I dug through my box of stuff, right? And I'm sure for any networking person out there, you have a box of stuff. And in my box of stuff, I had this little TP-Link travel router. I bought it just so that I could use it to connect to hotel wireless networks when I was doing classes remotely. So now I take this and I put it in bridge mode. So what it's going to do is it's going to bridge between my wireless network and my Ethernet port right here. Connected that over to the management port on the AirCheck G2, and then I'm using port number 1 right there, which is the one that does up to 500 milliamps, and I power this. Now, I put my little USB current meter on there, and this pulls about 150 milliamps. I found that it really does work best with port 1, but now we have this connected to our wireless network, so I can take this and I can put it out there in my network somewhere, and it is going to be able to be managed remotely. So let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at how we put this in remote mode. So I'm going to turn that off for just a second. So if I come in here to my AirCheck G2 and I tap on the settings button right there, and I scroll down and I go to device settings. What we're going to have is there is a setting right here that says remote user interface. So I'm going to tap on the remote user interface. It gives me some info right there, and I'm going to say apply. Now it blanks out the screen and it gives me an IP address on there. And so in this case, it says 10.0.0.226. So that is the IP address that I got through that bridge connection. So what I'm going to do is let me move this screen out of the way here, and I'm going to go out to VNC. Now once I put that in remote mode, it can now be VNC'd into. So here's the situation. You have a remote site where you're having some issues. And yesterday we did a presentation on really the difference between what is site dependent and what's site independent. So if I'm using a tool like the Etherscope NXG, I could go out and discover the network. I could use SNMP to query devices out there, and I could find out, do I have ports that are having errors? One of the things with wireless is we can't do as much of that. We can go in and get some wireless information, what AP is a device associated with, etc. But if I really want to see what's happening in the wireless environment out there, this is one of those things I need to be out there. So what can I do? Well, I could take and put my AirCheck G2 in a box, and I could overnight it out to a remote site. So if I had a remote site where somebody was complaining about wireless issues, I could overnight that out there, and I could pre-configure that little wireless bridge to connect to the wireless network out there. Now, if the wireless network was totally down and having issues, we could still connect via the wired port. But once I send it out there, I tell them turn it on, go to settings, go to device settings, go to remote user interface, and tell me what IP address it got on that screen. Once they do that, I can start up VNC on my machine, and I can remote into it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to start VNC here, and I'm going to drag this over to this screen. And I'm going to come in here, and we are going to start a screen share. We're going to share that right there. So there is our AirCheck G2. And I am remoted in using our wireless connection right there. So now I could just take off and start wandering around the studio here. I could wander outside, I could start collecting information, and you would still see it showing up on there as long as I was within range for that little wireless bridge. So this gives me a way I can now go in and connect to this without having it tethered to my wired network. So what do we see happening here? Well, there's a few key things. And one of them is that we have our profile. We have the default profile. So whenever we make settings changes to the AirCheck G2, I can save those as a profile. So if I have a site that I'm going out to and I go to another site and I want to save the passphrases for networks, I want to save configuration information in here, all I have to do is save that as a profile. Then that profile can be loaded again in the future, and I can go in and collect that information. I can also export that profile, and I can import it into other AirCheck G2s. So by doing that, it allows me to go in and take and set one profile up and then give it to other people and say, these are the parameters, these are the thresholds I want you to use. So even if you didn't ship the AirCheck out there, and if they had an AirCheck, you could send the profile out, remote into it, and be able to use that profile. Now, periodically, this is transmitting. It's sending out probe packets, and we see that little light right there is flashing from time to time, showing us it's transmitting. We also have our channel scanning going on right there. So it's scanning through all the channels. Now, we can configure what channels, what bands it's going to look at. And what that does is it causes it to spend more time sitting on each one of those channels or bands if we reduce the number of channels or bands that we're taking a look at. Now, we have our home screen right here. Shows us how many networks have we seen. So let's go ahead and drill straight into that. So now, I've sent this out to the remote location, and I want to get an idea of what does my wireless environment look like out there. Because before we can start troubleshooting, we need to know what the conditions are. Now, somebody has their phone. I guess they could turn on Wi-Fi out there. They could click on it. They could see what networks they're seeing. But it's not going to give them the detailed information we're going to get here. And if we're going to troubleshoot and optimize wireless networks, we need this type of information. So here we see the SSID. We see the signal strength of the strongest AP on that network. We see what type of security is being used, how many APs, how many BSSIDs have we seen for that particular network, and how many clients. Now, we can come up, and if I tap, I'm going to click because I'm using VNC, but I'm going to tap right up here, and I can set what I want to sort by. If we change the sort order, it also adds this field to our screen. Now, one of the things that I really like is the fact that this will show me my signal to noise. So I can come in and I can start seeing what my signal to noise ratio is for my network. And this is going to be my signal strength minus my noise. And that the greater this number, the stronger that, well, I hate to say the stronger the signal. It is the greater the difference between the signal and the noise. So sometimes we can get into a wireless network where we have good signal, but we also have very high noise. So on your phone, if you're strictly using your phone as a way to determine the signal strength, you might see, hey, signal looks great, but you're still not able to receive something. And that's because you're having a hard time discerning that data traffic from the noise. So we could come in and take a look at our signal to noise ratio. I could change this. I could say, you know what? I want to know, which network has the most APs on it. So I could come in and I could say, hey, show me that. And now I could see that, I've got a couple out there with 2 APs on them. I've got this one right here, that 5G, 1. So we've got these. Now I can change that sort order and stuff, but the idea here is to help me get down to those devices I'm interested in the most. I can also come in here and filter. And this is a really useful one because if I'm in downtown Seattle and I'm doing some work for a client and I bring my AirCheck G2 in, or here's the really neat thing, travel is so restricted. Getting together in groups is so restricted right now that I could send this downtown and I could connect up to this and remote in and start working on it, right? And so what that does is it allows me to go in there and start working with a client and help them troubleshoot without me having to go on site. But I can get my ears, my wireless ears on site and start monitoring that information. So in this case, what I could do is I could say, you know what? I want to set my minimum signal strength. And this is going to say any access point that does not meet this minimum signal strength will be filtered out of my display. So we're going to set this at neg 67, and we can come in here and change these values around, but I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So now we see 9 of 10 networks. We filtered one of those networks out. So what it's done is it's come in and it's whittled that down. I just want to see the networks that are closest to me. Because if I saw 100 and some odd networks, I don't want to have to scroll down through all those networks to try and find the ones that are of greatest interest to me. So we could come in and we could say, yeah, PR home. Let's take a look at that. So I'm going to select that. Now, anytime we see a little blue arrow, blue triangle up there in the upper corner, this is going to be an indicator that I can click, I can tap on that field and drill in further. And what we find is if we did a little diagram of each of the different screens on the AirCheck G2, what you'd find is that there's a variety of different ways to get to each one of the different screens. So in this case, I could tap on that, and it's going to show me which APs are out there and what channels those are on, and what my signal strength is and what my security is, my signal to noise ratio. So now I can see what APs I have out there. Are they on, channel? I see one on 1 and one on 11. That's great. If I wanted to add one more, where would I put it? I'd probably want to put it on 6. So now I have some nice coverage. I'm using 3 different non-overlapping 2.4 gigahertz channels. Things are good. So I'm going to come back. We can come in, it shows the signal level, the strongest AP, my noise level. And here we see that the difference between these two is 36 dB. That gives us our signal to noise ratio. Security, it shows mixed. And so this is something I'd want to go in and look at. It's giving me it's indicating that I may have both secured and unsecured networks out there. Tells me what 802.11 types I've got. Tells me what clients are out there and shows me which AP they're associated with. And I can create a file that gives me BSSID to name so I could get rid of these MAC addresses and I could replace that with a name as well. Tells me my band, my channels. So it starts giving me an idea of what's going on. Now, from here, I can say I want to connect. And when it comes right down to it, what is it that most people are concerned about when it comes to Wi-Fi? I need to connect. And when do they call you? It's when they can't connect. And so when we're troubleshooting remotely, figuring out why we could not connect becomes a big issue. Because I can't just do a packet capture easily and see what's going on. In fact, a packet capture may give me more information than I need. Now, I'll show you how we can do a packet capture in here. But in this case, I'm just going to come in and say I want to connect to the wireless network. Now, I have already gone in and I have used, I've set up the passphrase in here. I'm going to show you how we can get rid of that. But in this case, my connection's been established. I got an IP address. My default gateway was found, a DNS server or DHCP server, DNS, got out to the internet. I got to 8.8.8.8. If we scroll down a little bit here, it tells me I connected at 117 megabits per second, and my max PHY rate is 130 megabits per second for this network. So in this case, hey, we're connected up. Retries look good, signal to noise good. I am connected. Now, I had gone out and I was helping one of my customers troubleshoot a problem. People were trying to connect to their guest network and they could not connect. It kind of looked like they connected, it took the passphrase, they didn't even need a passphrase. But they would try and connect and they couldn't get out there. So what we did was we used the AirCheck G2 to connect. And then what I did was I came in and I clicked on log. This is where we move above having to do a packet capture to see what's going on, but we get detailed information about how we are connecting to the network. So in this case, we said, hey, we're going to go to PR home, encryption auto, WPA2. We're sending our pre-shared key. We're attempting to join PR home. We're scanning for it. We do our authentication. We do our association. We're connected. It tells us which AP we connected to. So we know exactly which of the APs, which can give you a head-scratching moment sometimes because you go, why did it connect to that AP? This one's closer. So now we start getting a good picture of how we're connecting out there at that remote site. We do our four-way key exchange. We come down here, we do our DHCP discover, we receive our offer, we send our request, we're successful, we're now connected. So that client that I was helping, what we noticed is this all went fine. Authenticate, associate. But then we get a deauthentication from the access point. So that's kind of rude. That's like somebody inviting you over to dinner, and then when you get there, kicking you out. They say, hey, come on over. We'll take care of you. And then you get there and they say, nope, deauthentication. Go back out to your car and leave. So what we find is that in this case, not in this particular case, but in their case, the APs were deauthenticating people. So we started doing some digging around. Now, anytime you call a vendor, and even for the good vendors, you call and you say, hey, people are having trouble connecting. They'll say it's your network. So what you need to do is you need to have the information necessary to show them what's really happening. So we called up the vendor and we sent them a screenshot. And we said, see that deauthenticate there? I think that's your AP that's sending it. Oh, well, there's a firmware fix for that. So by being able to show exactly what was happening, we headed off the it's your network, and we were able to get them the information they needed so that they could give us the right answer. So by being able to come in and see this test log, it starts giving me that information I need to be able to see what's going on. Okay. So now I am connected to that network. I have an IP address. So we're connected through the management port, either with a wired connection or, in this case, with our little wireless bridge. And our network port on here is now connected to our wireless network. So what we find is we can save this information. I can come in here and I can click on this right here and I could say, I want to add a test comment. And we could say, I'll say studio desk. So it's sitting out here on the desk in the studio. I'm going to save it out there. What this is doing is this will upload this information to Link Live. Now, if you own an AirCheck G2 and you have not set up a Link Live account and registered it, claimed it, you're missing out. So after we get done going through some of these things, I'm going to show you the Link Live component, because Link Live allows me to take these test results and push them up to the cloud. So now I can go in and start filtering on these. When I put that studio desk in there, it's going to put a label on this test result. So I could go back later and I could see what my connectivity looked like at that spot. In fact, get a little exercise once you can start getting back in the office. Go out to a few locations every once in a while and test over time. And you could then do a filter and say, show me how that's changed over time. Do I still get the same phi rate? Do I still get the same connectivity? See what's going on. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. So now it uploaded that comment out there to Link Live. We'll go back and we'll take a look at that. But that is a great way to send that. And especially if I'm doing this troubleshooting remotely, what we're going to see is that there are a number of tests and so on I can run, but I can even do a wireless packet capture with this. So I could send this out to the remote site. I could do a wireless packet capture, or I could say, I'm going to capture my phone going out and connecting. I could then take that packet capture, upload it to Link Live, go over to my web browser and grab it. Now, there is not an easier way to A, do the capture, and B, get that capture back to your machine than remoting into that and doing that. Now, we'll go through that and we'll do a little packet capture here as we're going along, and I'll show you that information. Okay. So I could save this. We're going to go ahead and come out to tests. And what we find is we can do an Iperf test and we can do a roaming test. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click on the roaming test first. And when we go out and do a roaming test, what we do is, in this case, we're going to ping something. This needs to be something that responds to ping, okay? And it's going to start pinging it. So we'll just say our default gateway, and I'll hit apply. So now what's happening is it is going out and pinging the default gateway. And as we move around, we will see our quality go up or down. Right now, quality looks great. Let me just put my hand over the top of this, see if we can affect that quality. Now we got a pretty good, oh, there we go. Ha ha. So I put my hands over it, we can affect that quality, right? So what we'll see is as we're moving further and further away from this access point that we're connected to, we're going to start seeing that quality go down. And in fact, before the end, I'll send you a link. I've got a YouTube video where my buddy Stuart and I are at his facility and we're going down the stairwell amongst multiple floors. What we see is that our quality starts dropping, then we'll see a red line. That is where we move, we roam to the next AP. So with our little wireless bridge on here, I could have the person at the remote site start walking around. Now, unfortunately, they don't get to see the screen, but I do. So I could see them roaming. I could see that connectivity change. Now, in this case, it's going to depend on the fact that that little wireless bridge can roam too, if they're moving between multiple APs. But I can see which AP I roam to. I could see if I hit a spot where I can't roam. This would be a dead spot in my network. So I'd want to address that. So in this case, I could hit stop. I could go and take a look at the log for this, and it would show me when I roamed, where I roamed to, etc. Right now, all we've done is just connected to a network. Now let's come back. We're going to do Iperf test. Now it says running the Iperf test while the Ethernet interface is connected may yield weird results. Now, back behind me, we have our test accessory back here. So our test accessory right here is a little Iperf server. It's PoE powered. It's sitting back here running away. And what it does is I have claimed it to link live. So what's happened is I now get a list of these devices that have been claimed to link live. So I can come in and select it. And I think this one's 116. We'll give it a try. So I could go in and go into my settings. We could say, here's our ports. We're going to use TCP. I could go into my thresholds. I could say, you know what? I need at least 50 megabits per second out of this connection. Okay. So we'll hit apply. We'll go back. We'll go back. So let's go ahead and hit start. Now, I'll be honest with you. In this case, well, maybe not. So in this case, we got 30.5 megabits per second and 22.5 megabits per second. So what Iperf does, somebody had asked, what's an Iperf test? So Iperf is typically an open source throughput measurement tool. There's a variety of different flavors of Iperf. And on most Linux boxes, I can say sudo apt install Iperf 3. What it's going to do is it's going to install this little throughput measurement tool. I can use the AirCheck G2 in combination with that throughput measurement tool. So we're going to go back. We're going to change our thresholds just a little bit. We're kind of being hard. On that network, we figure that I usually figure we get about half the data throughput of our connect speed. So in this case, 50 megabits per second may be a little bit much. And really, for most applications, even like this webcast, we don't need that much. In fact, with Zoom, all the testing I've done with Zoom, we need about a megabit per second. So let's say that we have set a threshold at that remote network where we need to get 5 megabits per second from wherever we connect. So I'll hit apply. We'll go back. Let's rerun that test. So Iperf allows us to do throughput tests between the AirCheck G2 and an Iperf server. Now, this Iperf server could be on my laptop, it could be on a Linux box, or it could be the test accessory. So all of these allow us to go in and do that throughput test. So now I set my threshold to 5 megabits per second. It shows me right here that my average up speed was 37.2 and my down speed was 26.4. Okay. So we are able to see what our throughput looks like for this particular location. This SSID, this AP. So now I know I'm getting the throughput. So number one, we know that we had the connectivity we expected. Number two, we know we have the throughput we expect. So here's the thing, and if you've been in one of my presentations before, you've probably heard me use the S word, and that should. If you're using it, stop. Start using definitive terms like, you will get this throughput. This is what we got. Don't say, you should be able to connect from there. No, that's not okay. The tools are available. Go out and measure it. You can see what kind of throughput you get. Here, we could see what kind of throughput we got from that location. So I'm going to go back. Okay. So we have connected. We can test our roaming. We can measure our throughput out to that location. That is the type. These are the types of tests that we need to be able to run to find out what we've got. Now, I could load Magic Iperf on my phone, but my phone doesn't tell me any of this signal information. It doesn't save the test results, and it doesn't tell me which AP I connected to. And this is an important one, because if I am going out and deploying a wireless network or troubleshooting a wireless network, I want to be able to come in and select which AP I'm going to connect to. So in this case, we connected to 250F. I want to connect to EFFD. So I'm going to select that one and I'm going to say connect. So now I am forcing this to connect to an AP. So I can make sure that each of my APs are going to allow me to connect. So in this case, we're connecting. I'm going to go ahead and add in a comment. Now, the difference between a test comment and a job comment. The test comment is only added to this one result. The job comment is added to every result that I run as long as that job comment's in there. So if I'm out at a site, I could put a job comment in there and it would put that in there. So now I can group all of those test results together. So we'll hit apply. Okay, now let's go ahead and run a quick Iperf test here. I go ahead and hit start. Okay, so now we're doing a throughput test to that AP that's on the other end of the building. Not so good, but it was a negative 80 signal strength. So in this case, I don't expect it to be good, but it gives me an idea if I connect to that AP, what kind of throughput can I get here? Okay. Ooh, so bad we got not responding. So we could connect, not very good throughput. So remember, it's very important that we differentiate between those two. Connecting does not mean speed. Connecting means you connected. And we don't have to talk very fast to connect. All right. So let's come back here. In fact, I'm just going to click on that home button right there. We go out to home. Here is another one. And this is something that I cannot see centrally. I have to be able to remote in and see what's going on. And that is what's happening with my channels. So here we can see, how many APs we have on each channel. We can see what our utilization looks like and so on. So yes, so one of the questions was the test comments for a one-off result. The job comment is for multiple test results at a site That is precisely it. So let's say that somebody hired me to come out and take a look at their wireless connectivity. We want to see, can we connect in these locations? Or you've just deployed a new wireless network and you want to show somebody it's working properly. What you could do is go in and put the job comment in. I could say, Maple Valley. So that would be for the Maple Valley location. Then as I go to each location, I can put in where that location is. So I could say, let's say that there's office numbers. I could say, 105 or 105 first floor, 1010 or 1010. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Never. So in that case, I could put in that office number. So I could go back, I could say at this location, this is the type of performance that we got. Okay. Now with my channels, there's some kind of neat things in here. We can click on overlap. If we turn our head sideways, this shows us what our channel overlap looks like for each one of our bands. And what that does is I can see what's going on here as far as my overlap goes. I can see I've got some 80 megahertz wide channels running there. Nothing going on there. Nothing really going on there. There's 2.4. So I've seen places where people are running 40 megahertz wide channels at 2.4. That's no good. We don't want that at all. Why? Because now they're going to be stepping all over me. So I could see, someone on channel 4 and overlapping. We can see that channel 11 is pretty heavily used. We might want to bump some things down there to channel 1. Come back and look at my utilization. I could go over here to channel 11. We could see what our utilization looks like. We could say view our details. Now I can start getting an idea of what that utilization looks like. Again, something that I can only tell from being out at that remote location with some sort of device to be able to monitor that. Shows me the clients, APs, interferers. Interferers are going to be non-802.11 devices that are operating in our band. So if I click on that, this comes back and tells me that there's a Bluetooth device out there. Now, if I wanted to blow my network up, I would fire up my old X10 color camera. This operates at 2.4 gigahertz and totally destroys channels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Well, we're going to hold off for this one. I don't want to knock everyone off the office network. But things like this camera are what will destroy our network, microwave ovens. And so what we find is that by being able to come in here and see what interference devices we have, I could double click on that interference device and we could do a locate. And that is where our directional antenna comes in. Now I can start going out and using things like my directional antenna to locate where that device is. Where is this on my network? And I need to get rid of that. Okay, so we're going to go back. Okay, so we can see our utilization. It's kind of stepping up. Just step down there. We can see what clients we have out there, etc. And this is where we can start doing things like packet capture. I want to capture, see what's going on out here. And this puts it in a PCAP format, so I can take this right into Wireshark. So let's do this. We're going to click on capture. Now, up here it says, gives us a capture name. I could say, let's see. Let's delete that real quick. We'll call it Channel 11 Studio. We're going to capture, we could set this up to a gig file size. Let's just grab a little 10 meg sample here. We're saying Channel 11. We're not filtering on any BSS IDs or MAC addresses. We're going to get control data and management frames. I can go ahead and hit start. I am doing all this remotely. This could be thousands of miles away from me. And now I'm doing a packet capture. So we're going to take this capture, and we're doing a capture of channel 11 out here in the studio. I'm going to hit stop, and I'm going to go to manage files. I'm going to grab that file right there. I'm going to say upload that. So now what it's doing is it just uploaded that file. Now, that file is still on the AirCheck G2. I could plug a USB drive in there and I could come in here and say save to USB, right? Grab my little USB, right? Little tiny, almost dropped that in my cup of coffee. I could take that little tiny USB, plug it in, copy it out there, and I can move it straight to my machine as well. So we don't have to use Link Live, but you're gonna see, it's pretty cool. Okay, I could even add a comment to that, but I just did a packet capture channel 11. So we can start drilling in from channel, but that gets us to AP and gets us to clients, gets us to all those same locations that we were getting before. We can get to APs, we can get to clients, interferes. What I want to do is I want to show you AutoTest, because AutoTest is how I can set up a single button to go in and run multiple tests at the same time. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go into my settings. Now this is where we have our profiles. This is where we have our networks. And here is where I can come in and edit what passphrase I'm going to use or password. Am I going to get a DHCP address or do I want to use a static address? This supports a captive portal. So if your environment, you run into a situation where a web page pops up and you have to click accept or you have to type in a email address, etc. If this captive portal is turned on, that web page will pop up there for you. Okay. Now we're going to come back. We're going to go out here to our thresholds. This is where we set what our thresholds are for pass or fail. This is dependent on your environment. And a lot of this is going to depend on the received sensitivity of the devices you're using in your environment. It does not matter. Okay, it does matter, but I could talk at a certain level, but if you have a hard time hearing, I'm going to need to talk at a higher level. So different devices have different received sensitivities. Different devices have different numbers of antennas. So each device can be a little bit different in how it interacts with the wireless network. And also, if I have a device with a really strong transmitter, like my MacBook, that device can be further away and get higher speeds than a device like my phone that may have a less powerful transmitter because it's running off that battery power. So we have to balance all this. So within your environment, it's important that you understand what thresholds apply to your environment. But we're going to jump down here to AutoTest settings. Now with AutoTest settings, what we're going to do is we're going to scan through all of our wireless channels. We're going to take a look at what do they look like? And we've got some thresholds in here we'll take a look at that give us an idea of how healthy is our wireless network. Then I can say, which wireless networks do I want to connect to and run a test? So we're going to look for rogue APs. Now, rogue APs are any AP that we have designated as unauthorized. So I'll show you with an AP, we can go in and say that AP is authorized or not authorized. And if it's unauthorized and it shows up in this test, it'll show up as a rogue AP. So in this case, I've said I'm going to connect to the Netgear 77 5G network, PR guest, PR home. I'll hit apply. Let's go back out to our home screen. We're going to run the AutoTest. So what the AutoTest does is it first looks at our air quality. So it's making one pass through all of our channels. We can make multiple passes through our channels if we wanted. It's coming in here and it's saying that for our 802.11 utilization, we look good. So it gives us an idea of what our utilization values look like. Okay. Our non-802.11, this would be interference traffic. Okay. So we've passed those thresholds right there. Co-channel interference. This is where we've set a threshold that says if we have more than 4 APs on a channel, that is a warning. So we see that channel 11 has 5 APs. So I may want to go in and balance this out a little bit. What's going on in here? Why do I see those? Now, if I'm seeing things like I know there's channel 1 APs on channel 1, but I don't see it, it could be that short period of time when I was scanning channel 1, there was not a beacon going out for that AP. So this is a case where I may want to do more than one scan through there to make sure I pick those up. Our adjacent channel interface. So do I have somebody on channel 2? Do I have someone on channel 3, channel 4 that could be overlapping with one of my channels in there? No rogue AP devices found. We say network quality. Well, we failed on network coverage, and that's because one of the thresholds we set was we said we have to have 2 APs of coverage at each location. Now, if that's not correct, then we want to change that to 1, just so that we could go in. We don't want a red bar if that's something that we're okay with. So it says co-channel interference, we're good. Security, we're good. So we were able to connect to Netgear 77 5G. We uploaded those test results to Link Live. We go to PR Guest. PR Guest, kind of the other end, we do have 2 APs of coverage, but we have 5 APs on that channel. So we may want to look at how could we reduce the number of APs that we have on that channel. And it could be that one of those APs is not secure. So we get our information there. PR Home, AP cover. We failed on AP coverage, and we've got too many APs on that channel. So what it's done is with one push of the button, AutoTest, it's checked our air quality and it's checked connectivity to 3 networks. So you could see where you could have somebody walk around the facility to key locations, conference rooms, the lobby, places where you need to make sure that you have wireless connectivity. Run the AutoTest. Now, as we were running that AutoTest, it was uploading those results to Link Live. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I am going to bring up Link Live. Okay, so here is Link Live. So, and let's see. We'll move that up here. In fact, yeah. All right. So here we have Link Live. So I can come in and let's zoom in just a little bit here, make it easier to see. So here's a test that I just ran. So right here it says air quality. So we ran our air quality test, and if we move over here, it shows what our utilization, non-802.11 utilization, co-channel interference, it's giving us all that air quality. Oh, all right. Thank you for telling me that. You know, when I moved that, it broke that connection. So let me fix that real quick. Thanks for letting me know. Those are the kinds of things that I can start just going on and you're not seeing it. So hopefully you're seeing the right screen now. And here's my AirCheck G2. Here is our information about that. And if we come over, we can see that air quality information. Now, if we come over here, notice we've got this little link right there. What that's telling us is it's performed as part of an auto test. This result is linked with this result. Here's where I connected to PR Home. Shows me all the information about that. Here's where I'm connected to PR Guest. Here's where I'm connected to Netgear 77 5G. So running that auto test uploaded all that information. Now I could have gone in and added a label then. I could also come in and add my label here. I could say Studio Desk. So I've added my label. Now, within Link Live, all I need to do, and Link Live is free, go out to link-live.com, set up an account, come over here to Devices, say you want to claim a unit, click on your AirCheck G2, follow the instructions, and it'll claim that and connect it up there, and away you go. Okay? Now let's close that. All right, so we've got our test results here. And we can see our air quality. We can see this. So if I came up here to search and I type in studio desk, there are the 4 test results. I have thousands, over 2,000 test results out here. 2,300 even. I like even numbers. So in this case, 2,300 test results, and I found the 4 that were related to this location right here. So now I've saved those. I could do this over time. And in fact, some really cool things you can do once you put this in Link Live is I can come down here to my little action button in the bottom corner, and I can export that to a comma-separated value file, and I get all these values in a spreadsheet. So I can start graphing out what my throughput was, my signal strength was, all kinds of neat things. And remember, I'm doing all this without even touching the screen of the AirCheck G2. So it could literally be anywhere in the world where I can VNC into it. So we've come in, here's our test results. We could come over here to our stored files. And right there is that PCAP. That is the trace file that I captured out there. It tells me when I captured it. We could add that same label. So now I've tied a label in with that, so I could sort that out. But I could come in and say, download that file. So now it's downloading that PCAP file. So somebody out at the remote site did the capture. Now what I'm doing is I'm able to come in, grab that capture, I'll click on that, I'll bring up Wireshark, and now I could come in, I could say, did I see any key exchanges occur? Right here. So, oh, that Amazon Fire Stick. It is sending that message 1 of 4. That thing gets stuck in a loop. And so we could come in and I could now start doing things like I could say, hey, I want to grab that hardware address of that Fire Stick. I could right click, I could say prepare as filter, selected, and we could say WAN address, I could say apply. And now we could start seeing what's going on with that stupid, no, it's not stupid. But we could see, reassociation response. There's something going on with that. Authentication, what's happening with that Fire Stick? So now I have the packets. Easy, easy, easy for being able to go in and collect that information. So I'm going to say quit Wireshark here. And we'll come back. Let's bring Link Live back up. So now I can start generating my reports on that. Okay. Now, one of the things with Link Live, we'll zoom in. If we put a / in front of the test or in front of the job comment, it creates a folder. So this is where I could come in and I could say, show me the different folders. So I could say March webcast. So now it shows me my test results that are in that March webcast folder. So this allows us to create a folder and dump all those test results into that folder. So for that site, I can have all my different test results out there. Okay. So, a lot of information to cover. But what the AirCheck G2 does is not only does it give us a deep insight into what's going on out there on our wireless network, but through that management interface, which could be connected to a wired port, or we could come over here. We've got our little wireless bridge set up right there. And I've been totally unplugged, no power plugged in there. I'm driving that remotely. I'm able to connect to it and do all of these tests and get an idea of what's going on out there with my wireless network. And all I had to do is stick this in a box and ship it out there. I don't have to go. I could have these located at various networks. And one of the challenges we run into is it's wireless, so we really need to move around. So go out, I don't have one out here, get a headset, send a headset out there, have one of the folks out there at that remote site. Put a headset on them. Say, hey, I need you to walk out to this location. Or you could start roaming analysis. And you could say, okay, I want you to follow this path through the building. And you would be able to see what their connectivity looked like as they were moving through that building. And with Link Live, we can now start consolidating all of those test results. So if I were to come back, and let's do this. We're going to go to our test results. And we are going to say device AirCheck G2. Anything that's blue in here, I can click on. So now it's set a filter on any AirCheck result. Okay. Now I could say here, I'm going to do a filter on Studio. So any result that has the word Studio in it that was done with an AirCheck is now going to appear in here. So 80 results. So then I could come in here, I could say, you know what? I want to generate a CSV file with all those results. All right. So one of the questions, can the Etherscope be integrated with Link Live as well? You bet. In fact, every one of the tools that I have behind me can be. We've got our test accessory. It registers with Link Live. In fact, let me grab in the drawer here. We can go all the way down to the Link Sprinter, which can be used to validate wired connections and has a built-in wireless access point. We could go in and we could go in there and we can use this, and the results from this will be uploaded to Link Live as well. Okay, so somebody asked about the stand. So if I come out here, we go out to Thingiverse, and I do a search, and I say NetAlly. Here are the different stands that we've got for this equipment. So if you go out there to Thingiverse, search for NetAlly, NetAlly has uploaded these stand designs. I went out and I got a spool of fluorescent green filament, so I could print some that look like that. And then I just got, well, they're over there. I got some little rubber feet that we can stick on the bottom. So that way it doesn't slide around. But it makes a great little stand to put those on. We've got it for the test accessory, Link Sprinter. For the older testers, so if you have like an AirCheck version 1, you can put that one in there. And then there's one for the Etherscope. Okay. Let's see, to remotely access the G2, does it have to be bridged to the TP-Link? It doesn't have to. I could just go ahead and plug this in via an Ethernet cable. So we have to use this Ethernet connection right here on the side. So I could come in, I could unplug that, okay? I'm gonna turn it off real quick. And I'm going to grab just an Ethernet cable. I'm going to turn it back on again. So now I could go in with just an Ethernet cable and connect in there. The advantage of using something like our little TP-Link bridge, and it's not just TP-Link, this will work with pretty much any little wireless bridge that you can find, is now I could come in, I could go to my device settings, remote user interface, and apply. And this time it has an IP address of 111.138. So we could go in and I could VNC into it on that one. Okay. And let's see. Let's just go out here real quick. And let me grab this video for you and I'll put that in the comments. Here's our roaming test. And this is where we use this to roam. So right there we can see the screen and we can see what our signal level looks like. And I'll do a share while we're doing that. There's that video. So now we're going down the stairwell, and if we maximize that, we can see, and it's probably not coming through great, I don't know, on here, but in this case, we can see that right there, we just roamed. And so we changed APs up here. So if I were to back up just a little bit, we were at, it looks like CB21. And now we're at 0321. So we roamed right there. Now if we work our way down here, what we're going to see, let me just jump forward here, that right here, we have lost connection. We don't have, our quality is less than 1%. So we have roamed to this AP, but now we've lost connection and our pings are starting to fail. And so as we go along, eventually we will get connection back again. Boom, right there. So this area was a dead zone. So we're able to use this when we go in and do that roaming as a way to determine where our dead zone's in there. Okay. So that is how we can use the AirCheck G2 to go out and remotely troubleshoot a network. I can use that management interface, and that management interface can be wired, or like I showed you today, I think I looked on Amazon, you can get a little bridge like this for about 20 bucks. You can use that as a way to add in a wireless management port on your AirCheck G2. All right, so let me go look through here. All right, so I need to make sure I've got the schedule updated, but I do a quick start on the AirCheck G2, the Link Runner G2, and on the Etherscope NXG. Somebody asked if they have any more webinars out there. There is, if we go out to the NetAlly page, we go to training and events, we go to webinars. We've got a few webinars coming up. We say view all. What I do is I record all of these, and I'm not sure on here if they're where they are on this page. But go out, and we've got all kinds of videos and so on out there. Go out and check those out. AirCheck G2. There's that. Check out the YouTube channel. Okay. And if nothing else, shoot me an email. I'll get you that information. All right. I'd like to, oh, you know what? I wasn't sharing that. Sorry. Go ahead and check the NetAlly webpage. And this has been recorded, so an email will go out to everyone, giving you a link to the recorded version of this. So I want to thank you for joining me, and we keep sending these out. So we'll make sure that you know about future webcasts coming up. And somebody said, oh, here's the link. And you know what? I just realized my YouTube link only went out to panelists. There's the YouTube link. And here's the link to the recorded webinars. Or to the webinars. All right. Thanks a lot, and I hope to see you in a future webinar, and happy troubleshooting.